everybody at some point in their lives has scrolled through the Netflix library and said, I don't know what to watch, or I can't find anything. SportsGrid has really kind of solved that discovery aspect where, we understand the algorithms on every single connected device. So we kind of ensure that we surface to consumers at the right time. And I think that that's unique, and it's been kind of a pillar of our growth to date.
You're listening to 15M Mastering, a show that empowers you with insights from the leading iGaming experts to enhance your personal or business performance. The show is brought to you by tech-driven affiliate and media company Already Media, and supported by the AI-powered data analytics platform Blask. Yo Investments, a fund manager investing in outstanding people who are disrupting the iGaming, fintech, and crypto industries. And BC Game, the multi-award-winning crypto casino with a player-centric approach. Hey everyone, and welcome back to 15M Mastery. Today we're joined once again by Jeremy Stein, CEO and co-founder of SportsGrid, a pioneering 24/7 sports betting and gambling media network. Jeremy recently made headlines by signing major personalities like Brian Christopher to create new forms of casino entertainment. In this episode, we will learn how gambling brands can work with digital influencers to drive growth. Welcome back, Jeremy.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Awesome. Let's dive in. How can a media network use partnerships with digital casino influencers like Brian Christopher to build trust and drive engagement?
That's a really interesting question. And one of the reasons that we were attracted to Brian is specifically because of his relationship with his audience. I think what you see in a lot of casino streamers is that they have an audience, they have eyeballs, but they don't have a deeper connection to those people. Brian has really put an emphasis on community building, right? Like he has, a fan fest that's coming up next month. He does a lot of in-person meet and greets. He does cruises. Like he actually gets out and meets his fans, right? So that fostering of community is something that's very important to SportsGrid, right? Our pillars are content, community, and commerce. He's somebody that really ticks the community box, and it's very exciting to us. It's something, that really sets, streamers and everybody that we look for and influencers apart. We don't want just the audience. The community aspect is incredibly important.
Yeah, it feels like, I keep watching back into the early days of like crypto, sports betting and casino. Communities were the main reason why these guys were growing, right? It was so niche, so engaged on the community level. And it's really nice to hear that you guys are kind of looking into the same direction of like building these communities, ultra engaged, ultra loyal, super straightforward into like what is the real meaning of the sports and the sports betting. So I absolutely love it. So how can media brands use non-gambling influencers? Like I know you guys signed Paige Spirona to reach more diverse audience.
Yeah. So again, it's a very similar thing with Paige, right? We feel that Paige doesn't just have an audience, she has a community, right? And that's what really helps everybody with the authenticity component of this. Paige is really dynamic. She's a unique talent. And for SportsGrid in particular, right, with Paige, with Brian, we have another streamer. His name is Jeremy Elric, and he does specifically craps, right? Craps is a smaller market, but again, he has the community. He has the Discord. He's got it all. So what we're really looking to do here is we're building what we call the Avengers model, right? One superhero for everybody, and they get to push and pull amongst their audiences. They have 3 very different audiences, and, we're going to continue to add to this group. And as a result of that, right, we think it's a very compelling model for sponsorship because you're going to get a very diverse demographic with not just massive reach, a massive community offering.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So let's talk a little bit more about the basics. How does community engagement different between the casino content streamed by influencers or the traditional broadcasts?
The key difference between community and just general reach is conversion, right? At SportsGrid, we like to say we build conversion content. If you just have an audience and you don't have that like explicit connection with the audience, there's no difference between that impression and an impression that you can go out and buy at a much cheaper rate. And this is why, the best influencers, they always command some premium in the market because they do have that conversion aspect, right? It is true influence, right? And that's really why, the word influencer comes into play. And I think it's often misused, right? Influencer is now just deemed to be anybody that has a large following, but that's not necessarily the case. There's a big difference between an audience and a community. And I know that I sound like a broken record here, but I really think that that's such an important point to highlight, right? You can't just go out and get an audience and hope for the best. You really need that deeper emotional connection. And it really, truly is emotional connection. And it's something that you can actually see, in the comment section of every single video. You can really quickly determine like who is the real deal and who is not.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And I really like what you mentioned about the conversion element because, historically, many marketeers, they just split channels between like performance marketing and brand marketing. So which converts, and then the other one, which is generates the reach. And what you mentioned is sits somewhere in just between these two, which is absolute dream of any marketeer in the sports betting industry. So it feels like your guys onto something really important and game changing here. So let me ask you that one. How do you help these guys, influencers, to transition from their social media life to professional broadcasting while at the same time maintaining their authentic appeal?
So transition is an interesting word. We don't want to just make these people TV stars, right? We want them to continue on their existing path, right? They have large audiences and large communities, if you will. What we are doing is we are bringing that talent to a different medium, right? SportsGrid has a tremendous amount of distribution. We have, 240 million unique sessions that we were able to measure last year, which is substantial. And we think we have an audience that doesn't necessarily know who some of these people are. They have, a craving for this type of content. So we think that we're, actually giving everybody the best of both worlds. We're letting them continue on their path. We're going to assist them with our expertise, but we're also delivering a completely new audience to them and new monetization opportunities. So I think that that's a really important point, right? We don't want to just cannibalize, what they're doing existing. SportsGrid needs to be accretive, for everybody that we work with in order to be successful. And that includes our audience, right? It wouldn't do our audience, much good, right? If they are already familiar with Brian Christopher, because then we're just kind of extracting and shifting away what he would normally do on YouTube, to SportsGrid. So again, the whole goal here is to be accretive, which is honestly is a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I'm a bit of a data nerd, so I'm going to ask a question about metrics. So I know that your slot and casino influencers are probably driving billion views per year or even more. What engagement metrics mattered the most when you measured in their impact? For
us, right, we like to say we build conversion content. So at the end of the day, all of our partners are going to judge us on conversion. And what SportsGrid does is we bring the benefit of the top of the funnel, right? So you get branding, you get all this stuff married with bottom of the funnel attribution. And that's something you could not traditionally do in television. It's something that could only happen in a digital environment. So first and foremost, we're always going to be judged in some way, shape, or form on performance, regardless of, how we actually monetize. And second, our key metrics at SportsGrid is just general watch time of our network, and then of course sessions. So in combining all three of those, we think that we have a recipe for success.
Do you guys track or think of tracking the retention of the users who are consuming your content?
Absolutely, right? So, one of the unique things about SportsGrid is that we think about the television the way that traditional internet companies think about Google, right? You're optimizing for SEO. We are optimizing for discovery, retention, so on and so forth. on connected TV. Everybody here that's listening is, watched connected TV, they watched Netflix, and you understand how difficult discovery is, right? Everybody at some point in their lives has scrolled through the Netflix library and said, I don't know what to watch, or I can't find anything. SportsGrid has really kind of solved that discovery aspect where, we understand the algorithms on every single connected device. So we kind of ensure that we surface to consumers at the right time. And I think that that's unique, and it's been kind of a pillar of our growth to date.
Yeah, I really like it because I remember I listened to like one of the very earliest Mark Zuckerberg's interviews, and he said that they switched to the metric which they call screen time, which is essentially, their number one metric, which is driving anything they do in the product, like how to build amplified products within the product to keep the user, stay in the product and spend more time with it.
Along those lines, right? More time is spent on SportsGrid every single month than in all US sports betting apps combined, right? And we do know that more time spent on SportsGrid equals more time spent on our partner sites. So it's totally correct. And I think that's something that's really important to highlight.
Yeah, I love it. The quick one came to my head right now. Have you tried to actually attribute the screen time within SportsGrid to the real user sports betting activity within, partner products, like, I don't know whether it's DraftKings on FanDuel at the same time? Because what I heard about the live casino streamers, they can really see the audiences playing alongside with them. So have you thought about tracking that metric, or maybe you already done it?
This is definitely a conversation for a much longer and maybe, a third or fourth episode here. But we do have a very new product, and it is, let's say, connected TV affiliate. We can officially determine now whether we have exposed, a consumer to an advertisement and whether or not they've taken a specific action on a partner site. It could be buying sunglasses, or in our industry's case, it could be, registrations, first-time deposits. So that technology does exist, and that is the promise of connected TV. So that is something that, let's say, we obsessively track at this point in time.
I love it how you call it obsessively track. That's the right way to dominate in this industry. So I think the last one for today is actually a little bit like a spin-off of what you guys are doing at SportsGrid. So let's talk about influencers just for a sec. So for operators looking to work with gambling influencers, like whether it's within SportsGrid or outside of SportsGrid, what are the key do's and don'ts to maintain both authenticity, compliance, and conversions as the result?
You really need an influencer to, let's say, lean in, right? There are a lot of, again, people that have audiences in this industry that will pay, say, hey, look, I want $1,000 for a sponsored post. One-offs and things like that, just paying for placement, it doesn't really work, right? You need full buy-in from that person, because in many respects, that influencer is going to serve as your brand spokesperson in, their world, if you will. And if they're not fully bought in, if they don't really believe in the product, if they're just doing it to make money, I think you're going to see a poor outcome for everybody, especially, at the price some certain influencers charge. So you really have to ensure that people are really going to lean in, that they really like the product, that they're passionate, right? It's really tricky, because again, some influencers can be deceiving, but that really is the key recipe, whether or not, the influencer is fully bought in.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think, the way many brands should tackle influencers are like micro brand ambassadors in a way, because every influencer has, as far as we've uncovered, has its own engaged micro community, which is super loyal and can bring you significant impact to your business. Yeah. I really enjoyed today's episode, and I think your work with influencers is transforming how the generations will experience gambling content in the future. I really appreciate your insights today and finding the time to have a chat with us. Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.